Hello and welcome to Professor Pincushion. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can make your own adorable sock cat. If you've watched our tutorials before, you know we've made a sock monkey and a sock dog, but now it's time that we create the sock cat. I'm going to show you how you can make your own using a fun pair of socks. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's go over some of the supplies and tools I'm going to be using in order to make my sock cat. So first thing, I'm going to need a pair of socks. So I have two of them here, and these are men's large, and I'm using the traditional sock animal sock here. So if you want to find out where to purchase these, we'll provide a link in the description. Of course, you can use another pair of socks as well. I would definitely recommend getting large socks. Usually men's 9 to 11 will work okay, and you may have to change the measurements a little bit in order to get everything to work. We also have some polyester stuffing. This is to stuff our sock. You need quite a bit of this. I have pins and needles. So I also have sewing needles here because we're going to be using our embroidery floss in order to do some of the features on the face. Fabric glue, all-purpose thread, scissors, fabric marker, sewing gauge. I have a little bit of yarn. This is going to come in handy when we do the head. And optional, 2 eyes. So I have buttons here for the eyes. Or if you don't want to do buttons, you can always do the embroidery instead. And also I have supplies here for making a little collar. So I'm using ribbon, 3/8 of an inch of ribbon, and then I have another button that I'm going to put on the collar. So the only thing not shown here is going to be my sewing machine. Take one of your socks, turn it inside out, and you're going to lay it flat so we have the heel on top. So this is the heel of the sock, this is the toe, and this is the opening side. So with the heel in the middle, I'm just going to lie it flat. You're going to start at the base of the heel here. You're going to measure down 3 inches. So I have my sewing gauge here. You're going to use your fabric marker. You're going to mark it, and then you're going to draw a line that goes across. So there'll be a line right here, the 3-inch mark. Once you have this line from the line to the end of the sock here, so from the line to the end, you're then going to draw a line that goes right down the middle, splitting these sections in half. I use straight pins to go through both layers of the sock. That way I can make sure that everything stays in place and nothing is going to be shifting. This blue line going down the middle, this is going to be our cut line because what we're creating are both the hind legs. So this is a hind leg and this will be a hind leg of the cat. So on both of these, what you're going to do is you're going to start on the end or the edge of the sock, so the side of the sock over here, 1/8 of an inch away from the end of the sock. So about right here. You're going to stitch across, keeping that 1/8 seam allowance, and you're going to stop 1/8 of an inch away from the blue line. So I'm going to stop about right here, pivot, and then sew all the way up to this blue line here. So you're stopping when you hit here, and you're not sewing across. You just go straight up and do a back stitch because we need to leave an opening for the leg. So I would do the same thing over here. Start from the side, 1/8 of an inch up, go across the end of the sock, pivot, and then sew up to the top. So when you're finished, between the 2 stitches, there should be 1/4 of an inch gap. You don't want to sew directly on the blue line because again, we're going to be cutting on that line and we don't want to cut into our stitches. When you pivot, make sure that you leave your needle down into your fabric, then lift your foot, and then you could just turn it around like this. Now I'm using a ballpoint needle. It makes it a little bit easier to sew through knitted fabric like socks. Don't forget to do your back stitching. I'm just using all-purpose thread and a regular length stitch. Now we're going to be sewing for creating the body piece. So this is the body, this will be the hind legs, and then we have this middle section which we'll save later for when we're creating the ears. So I draw another line that's 1/2 inch away from the bottom of the heel, and this time I'm going to sew directly on this line, except for I'm going to leave a 1-inch gap in the middle with no stitches at all because we need to keep that opening so we're able to stuff the body. So I'm going to start here on the end, sew, stop about here, and then start on this side and stitch till I stop about here. So that gives me my 1-inch gap. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, we just need some sort of opening in order to put in our polyester stuffing. Let's go ahead and cut each of our pieces apart. So I'm going to first start with the body piece. So from this line, I'm going to go down about 1/8 of an inch, and with my scissors, I'm going to cut across to one end to the other of the sock. We need to leave a little bit of fabric because if we cut on the line, we're going to be cutting our stitches. Then you're going to take your body piece and you're going to flip it right side out through your opening in the middle. Now we come down to the leg sections. For this one, I'm going to cut directly on the blue line from one end to the other, and then also cutting on this line, this blue line here from one end to the other, and that's going to separate our two leg pieces. Our opening here and here, you're going to use it in order to flip the legs right side out. Don't throw this portion away because we'll save it for later. Now we're going to fill each of our pieces with our polyester stuffing. So I'm going to put these in each of the openings. And really, the more you use this, the firmer your pieces are going to be. You really don't want it to be really hard or really soft. So you just want to use your preference on how much polyester stuffing you're going to use for each of your pieces. Once you have enough stuffing in it, we can go ahead and start sewing our holes closed. Now for the legs, you can just pin the ends together. You can see like I've done with this one. You just want to make sure that you don't just have the raw edges sticking out. You kind of tuck them in a little bit before you pin them, so you end up with a nice clean edge here on top. Now for the body piece, we're also going to be sewing this section closed. If because of the stitching you have pieces that stick out like this is for when we did the seam at the bottom, just push it in. It's going to be covered with the legs anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least it'll help it look a little bit better. So we'll get a little bit closer to show you how to hand sew this part closed. This is going to be the first of many hand stitches we're going to have to do for our sock cat. So I'm going to be using a contrasting thread, but definitely use a matching thread so it doesn't show as much. I just want it to be a little bit easier for you to see. So I have my needle and thread all ready to go, not on one end. This is the area that I'm going to be tackling. I don't have it pinned into place. I'm just going to try to do it without it. Now with this particular type of sock, it unravels pretty easily. So you want to make sure that when you're doing your stitches, you don't do it too close to the edge, as otherwise it's just going to rip out. I'm going to start at one end, right down here on one side. And again, I'm making sure I'm not getting too close to the edge. You don't want it too far, but just don't do it directly on the edge. And I'm starting underneath and then coming out on top. And then I'm going to grab a little bit on the other side. And then I'm just going to lightly pull it. Now if you have little pieces sticking out, just go ahead and tuck those in. So now I'm just going to grab a little bit of the other side. And you can see I'm just kind of going parallel with my cut edge. And then as I get it down to the bottom, I'm going to tuck the raw edge in a little bit, and then I'm just going to lightly start to pull it. So you'll see my hole starts getting to be a little bit closer together and starts closing up. So now I'm going to start a little bit on this side. So I'm going to do this for the whole length. Don't forget to tie a knot when you get to the other side. And then you're going to do the same thing for the ends of your legs as well. So then everything will be stitched and we'll be able to start putting our pieces together. Separate the head from the body by tying a piece of string around the top portion of your body sock. So this is the toe, here's the bottom where the heel is. So it really depends on the size of your sock on how much you're going to do it. For this sock, I'm going to go down about 4.5 inches, and it also really depends on how big you want the head to be. So I'm just using yarn that I cut. I'm putting it around where I want it, and then I'm pulling it really tight. So there you can see the head, and then I'm just going to go ahead, tie a knot, and then cut off the excess yarn. So we're only leaving just a little bit of a tail. Now we're moving on to shaping the hind leg. So this is one leg. We're going to do the same thing for the other leg. So here is the bottom of the leg or the foot, and then this is the top of the leg. So we're going to start here at the bottom of the foot. So I'm going to go up about 1.5 inches. Let me put this sideways so you can see, and then I'm going to fold it. So I'm folding the rest of the leg on top of the foot. So you can see now a foot is being formed. Then I'm going to get my hand needle and thread, and I'm going to sew attaching this part of the sock to the bottom of the foot, so it's going to pretty much stay like this. I'm going to be using the same slip stitch technique type sewing that I use for sewing my holes closed. So basically I'm just zigzagging between the two sides, and there's really no way to hold this besides just holding it with your hand. I can't just pin it into place because the foot will just become undone before I have a chance to sew it. I'm going to start down here at the bottom. Just grab a little bit, and I'm using a contrasting thread so it's easier for you to see. So you can see I'm on the foot portion, and now I'm going to grab a little bit of the leg, and you try to get as close as you can to where the crease is. That way it'll hold its shape a little bit better, and then pull it. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of the top of the foot and then pull it. And whenever I do any of these type of hand sewing, either closing holes or creating shapes and stuff, I usually go back and forth at least twice in order to really secure it. Next, I'm going to shape the top part of the leg. So here we have the foot and it's going in this direction. I have the foot sitting sideways. I'm going to take the top portion and I'm going to fold it in the opposite direction. So you kind of end up with an S shape. So I'm just taking the top, folding it and letting it crease naturally. So it's creasing about right here. Then I'm also going to hand sew this portion together. Now once you let go with your stitches, it's naturally going to relax out. So it may not be as scrunched down as when you originally fold it, but it's fine if it's just a little bit more relaxed looking. You at least get the shape. Let's go ahead and attach these hind legs to our body. I'm going to take the hind leg, I'm going to smush it down even more, making sure that the foot is still flat against the table. Then I'm going to press it against the body and pin it into place. But I'm not pinning the body just straight up and down. In fact, I'm going to tilt it a little bit forward and then pin the leg to each side of the body. That way it's going to make it a little bit easier for when we put our front legs on the front, and then it's going to sit upright a little bit better. My leg is pinned to my body, but it's only pinned by the pins going straight into the leg and then straight into the body. So this part is not easy. The pins help, but you still have to pretty much hold it with your hand. Then I use the same slip stitch technique, going back and forth between the leg and the body as close as I can to where they're actually touching. And I actually go around as much of the leg as I can. So I start here, I go down as far as I can to about the foot area, and then I also do the back of the leg as well. That way I can make sure that it's going to stay in the position that I want it to be in. Now it's time to go ahead and grab that other sock because we're going to be working on the other features of our cat. The first thing I'm going to do is work on the front arms of the cat. You're going to turn your sock inside out just like we did with the other sock, except the heel is going to the side instead of in the middle. So you're just going to fold the sock naturally how it normally comes. Then you're going to draw a line to however long you want your leg to be. So this is going to be the bottom of the leg, and then this line represents the top of the leg. Now I get this by taking my body, putting where I want my arm to be, and then we're going to pretend this is the ground. And that's going to give me a good measurement. So that's about 6 inches, but the foot's going to be folded just like the back leg, so I'm going to add another inch. You can always make it a little bit bigger and then cut it down later because we're going to have the raw edge here on the top. So I have my mark at my 7 inches. Then I go ahead and draw a line right down the middle, and then we're just going to sew it just like we did with the hind legs. So 1/8 of an inch from the end, from this edge, you're going to sew across. You're going to stop 1/8 of an inch away from your blue line and then sew all the way up until you get to the top, and then back stitch, and then do the same thing on this side. Cut along both of the blue lines separating your legs. Then go ahead, flip them right side out and fill it with your stuffing. Take each front leg and bend the bottom part forward, creating the foot just like we did before. You're going to stitch across and end up with something like this. And you can see I also folded the raw edge to the inside and pinned it into place, so it'd be a little bit neater and easier for sewing our legs to our body. To sew on each leg, you're going to place it in front of the body so you can kind of see where you want it. I don't like to do it directly in the center, but if I rotate this, it's just a little bit off to the side. Then I place it, I lift up the foot, and I'm going to sew around the base perimeter of the leg. So I'm just sewing around basically in a circle, doing the slip stitch. Now your leg's going to stick straight out, but that's perfectly fine because later we're going to bring it back down again. You can see the difference in that this leg has already been stitched down and this one is still sticking out because I've only sewn around this bottom portion here. So we're going to now put this leg down. I'm going to push underneath his leg, bring it down, tip him over, and then I just do a couple of stitches attaching the foot to his body just down here. If I want to, just to reinforce it, I'll then go ahead and do another row of stitches up here at the top of his arm after I stitch it down, and then that should make it really secure. The cat's tail is created by using this side of the sock that's opposite of the heel. So the sock is still folded in half. I draw a line that's 1 inch away from the fold. This is the end of the tail, and I'm stopping about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the toe of the sock. This blue line is going to be our stitching line. So if you want more of a curvy tail, you can definitely do that. I'm going to start here, back stitch, do a regular length stitch, just a regular straight stitch, and then curve around and then do my back stitch here. When you cut out your tail, cut a little bit past the blue line. So you're leaving about 1/8 of an inch past the blue line. So we have some seam allowance. Then you're going to turn it right side out and fill it with your stuffing. Take your cat's tail and you're going to sew it to the bottom of the cat's body. So it's not sticking at the bottom like this, it's on the back, just towards the bottom. Make sure that your raw edges are tucked into the inside of the tail, so when you sew it on using the slip stitch, you're not going to see that raw edge. Of course, after you finish sewing on the tail, you can just let it lie there, or if you want it to come more towards the front, you'll bring the tail to the front, and then I would just use a couple of tacking stitches to tack it down to this back foot right here at the corner. So I'm attaching this part of the tail to this part of the foot. We're moving on now to creating the mouth portion of the face. So for this, we're going to be using the toe of my sock. So you can see I have a cream colored toe, and I'm not cutting directly on the edge of the cream color. I'll just leave a little bit of the brown. So I'm just doing a really tiny perimeter because I'm going to leave a little bit so I can turn under when I'm actually sewing it onto my face. Make sure that you have your mouthpiece right side facing out. So there's the inside of my toe, and this is the right side. And you can see I have it sideways. So this is the other way. We don't want it like that. We want it like this. And you're going to pin it to the bottom portion area of the face. So the bottom part of my mouth area should be like on the underside of the head here. And definitely make sure that you take a little bit of the raw edge and you fold it under and then pin it all the way around. And we'll talk a little bit about sewing next, because this one's going to be a little bit different. It's going to look a little funny now, but that's because it doesn't have any stuffing in it yet. Here you can see the mouth area pinned into place, and when I'm pinning, I'm just taking a straight pin and I'm just going through the whole thing, just straight through. You just have to be careful because it's not really that secure. Now I'm going to start sewing it, but you can see I have 2 red pins here and they're about 1 inch away from each other. So this is going to be my starting point. I'm going to do my hand sewing slip stitch to sew this cream color portion to my head. And I'm going to start here, sew all the way around, and then stop when I get to the second pin, because this is going to be the opening for us to put in the stuffing. Go ahead and fill in the mouth area. So you can see it looks a lot better now that there's stuffing in there. And then you can go ahead and finish stitching this close. One of the last things that we need to cut out of our leftover sock piece is going to be the cat ears. Now there's no pattern for this, just draw a triangle. And my size is about 1.5 by 2 inches here at the base. Just draw something that you think is going to be a good size. Take it to the top of your head, see if you like that size, and if it's a perfect size for you, then just go ahead and add seam allowance around it. That way you know it's not going to get smaller if you sew it just the way it is. So it depends on how much seam allowance you want to add. 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, just add that to the edges. Then you're going to take your pattern, and for each ear you want to cut out 2 pieces. So since there's 2 ears, that means we're going to cut out 4. So I'm going to cut 1 here and 1 here, and this is folded in half. So I'm cutting 2 out at the same time. Take each pair of ears and you're going to place them so they're going to be right side to right side, and you're going to pin on the sides. Don't pin on the bottom. We're not going to sew here. This is where we're going to flip it right side out after we finish sewing around the edges. After I finish each ear and flip it right side out, I don't put any stuffing in there. It's completely flat. I just go ahead and pin it close. If it's easier for you, you can go ahead and slip stitch this bottom part to keep it close, and then you don't have to use any straight pins. Then I go ahead, place it on there. See, now it's starting to look like a cat. And you can see I just stick straight pins through the head and through the ear in order to hold it, because then you're going to do your slip stitch and stitch the ear into place. Now that all the parts are sewn onto the cat, we can get down to the fun part, which is decorating the cat. So we're going to work on the face, and then we're also going to add the collar. The first thing I'm going to do is add the buttons for the eyes. You have a choice. If you don't want to do buttons, you can always use embroidery floss and embroider eyes onto it. Buttons, of course, are pretty easy. I use straight pins, put them in the holes, so I can take a step back and look at the face and make sure I'm going to like the eye placement. You can see I'm putting the bottom of the buttons, so they're resting pretty much right on top of my cream part, which is going to be the mouth portion. Once you have the placement and it's perfect, go ahead and sew each button on. Next, we're going to move on to creating the features of the cat's mouth. You can see I used my fabric marker in order to create my design that I'm going to follow with my embroidery stitching. This just makes it a lot easier, so you can look at it, make sure you're going to like it, or erase it and start over again. I keep my design pretty simple. I already have embroidery floss on my needle. I'm going to start with pink because I'm going to start with the nose here. And there is a knot at the end. Now the difficult problem is we can't exactly get behind the nose and hide the knot on the inside. There's going to be a knot showing. So what I like to do in order to make it less noticeable, so take my cat, go to the bottom, and I'm going to come up underneath. So even if you see the knot, it's going to be hidden underneath his head. So I'm going to bring my needle to the bottom of his nose, and we're basically going to be doing a satin stitch, which is going to be filling in this area. So there's my knot right there. You can barely see it. So it looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do here, first let me just anchor my stitch here. Okay. So you can see it's on the edge right here. I'm just going to go to the edge on the other side of my blue line. But I'm bringing my needle so it goes right on top of where my stitch is coming up, but it's still on the edge of the blue line. So there's my first stitch. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm coming back over to this side, and then I'm going to come right above my stitch, but on the edge of the blue line. So you're basically doing a bunch of horizontal stitches, and then you're just stacking them on top of each other until you get to the top. Now once you get to the top, I'm going to do the same thing, where I'm going to try to bring my needle under here and then tie a knot. So again, it's going to be hidden. So there's the second stitch, and now going ahead. You can see I'm always starting on the same side and then coming out on the same side. I have black floss now on my needle because now I'm going to do the rest of it, the whiskers and the mouth. Now if you're wondering how much of the floss I'm putting on my needle, each floss comes with 6 and I'm doing half of that. So there's 3 strands here. I just like it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to start off the same way. I'm going to start my knot down here and I'm going to come up, let's see, I'll come up right on the end of the nose here if I could find that spot. Almost. There we go. This part is really easy because all we're doing is just following along with our lines now. So this is going to come straight down. but I'm making sure that my needle is going to come up where I want to go next. So I'm doing this middle part, and then I'm going to do each of the sides. So now I'm going to meet in the middle, but this time I'm going to come up on the edge of my next end here. And sometimes you gotta kind of play with it so you can make sure you do the right thing. And then I'm going to meet in the middle, and then if I want to do the whiskers, then I can have my needle come up over here. So since it's all hidden on the inside, I'm just going to go ahead and do it all at one time because nobody's going to see that part anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and finish both the whiskers, and then we'll move on to putting on the collar. Our very last step is optional, but I think it really adds to the character of your cat. So I'm going to go ahead and add a collar. Now you can have a lot of fun with this and how you decorate it. For the main collar, I'm just using a grosgrain ribbon, and this is 3/8 of an inch in width. I'm going to actually use some of my fabric glue. So I'm going to put a little bit on the end. I'm going to stick it right in the front, go around the cat's neck. And my ribbon's a little bit on the long side, but that's okay. You can always cut it off. When I get to the end, I'm going to put a little bit more fabric glue, and then I'm going to glue the ends together, just overlapping it just a little bit. And then if you want to glue on rhinestones or some other decoration, you could. I just have this button here, and I'm going to sew it right in the middle, so it's going to cover that overlap and then make it look really cute. All right, so here is our finished sock cat. Now don't forget to remove any fabric markers you have. I have a little buddy here, so this one was obviously made with a different type of sock. So I just want to show you that no matter what kind of sock you use, you can definitely create your own unique type of cat. So go ahead and have fun and make your own. New tutorials are released weekly, so please subscribe to be notified of the next release. Make sure to check out our other videos and visit ProfessorPincushion.com to view our complete library with well over 200 sewing video tutorials, including our exclusive premium content. Our premium membership is only $5 a month for unlimited access and only available at ProfessorPincushion.com. Also, don't forget to download our mobile app for videos on the go. Thanks for watching.